Hello, everybody. Firstly, can you hear me okay? And I'm going to need to wait for some comments for that because I'm on my own and there's always technical difficulties with this crap, trying to get it working properly. So if someone will let me know that you can all hear me loud and clear, then all good. Okay, I'm muted. Let's figure out what's going on there. Always something. Right. I shouldn't be muted, but okay. Camera. Oh, you can hear me or you can't hear me? You can hear. Am I loud enough? Is everything okay with that? I can turn myself up a little bit if need be. You can hear me loud and clear. Awesome. Okay. It's just, shut up, lad. Okay, so today I'm going to be launching a public beta of a companion application for your S2400. And this is for building out kits that will run on your machine. Now, you don't have to have a DSP card. This is nothing to do with DSP card, but if you've got one, great. And essentially what it does is you can import a bunch of samples to it, assign them to your pads, and assign most of the stuff that you can do when you're creating a kit on the machine. To speak a little bit about the application, it's completely web-based and it's mostly all client side, which means there's no back end to the web application. So everything's actually done in your browser. So with that said, if you're like on a Chromebook or something like really underpowered, it may lag a little bit if you're trying to do things like convert a bunch of samples that are huge or convert samples that are MP3s into the S2400 format. Now, what it does is as you import samples to it, let me wind that back a little bit. A lot of the issues that we get reported to on the forum with clicks and pops and crackles and stuff like that is because many people just don't know, but the S2400 has a native sample format that it prefers to consume, and that is 48 kilohertz 16-bit. And often we'll get surprised users that are having issues, trying to stream huge, great big 24-bit 44.1 kilohertz samples, for instance, from their SD card, and a whole bunch of them long samples. And that is causing the S2400 to have to do some conversion on the fly, which is just a CPU overhead. So the initial idea for this application, I started out as it just sort of being a converter to convert samples, and I've run away with it and sort of tried to implement a whole bunch of stuff just to make life a little bit easier. And as I said in a previous stream, you don't need your S2400 with you. Theoretically, you could use it on a phone. You wouldn't really want to do that with the interface, but just anywhere you've got a web browser. I have only tested this with Chrome. It may well work with other browsers, but I'm not able to support anything other than Chrome. So you're on your own if you're using some esoteric web browser on a Commodore Amiga or something like that. You're done. So let's take a look around the interface, and what I'll try and do is explain each sort of area of it. It's in its early stages. As I said, this is a public beta. Maybe I should say alpha, but I think what it's doing right now is great. You can create your kits, convert all the samples, create kits, bang those kits straight into your S2400, and you're off to the races. So let's have a look at it. Now, when you do first load it in Chrome, the interface is a little bit small. I think it defaults to sort of that sort of size. And now on Mac, I just press Command and plus or minus to zoom in. So on Windows will be the equivalent command. So I just like to zoom it in, and everything sort of stays the correct size when we zoom in. You can hear me, right? Because there's so many people that saying you can't. Anyway, right. I'm just going to carry on because it's recording this. So if this live stream doesn't work, then I'm just going to upload the video of the whole thing afterwards. So as we load up the interface, you should be quite familiar with it if you have an S2400 flat stop. And most of the stuff on here is implemented. If you get stuck at any point, as you can on the S2400, we've got a help button. And this is just mostly sort of placeholder text at the moment. I need to flesh all of this out, but it's there and gives you a kind of a starting point. So you can just click the help button. Many of the things that we've got, obviously, on the S2400, like filters, level, pitch, and envelopes and loops and slices are implemented, and they make their way into a kit. You can also control this web interface with a MIDI device. Now, on mine, I've already given it permission, but if you're on your machine, whatever machine you're on, at this point, when you click the close, it will probably ask, Chrome would probably ask you to give it permission to connect to your MIDI controllers. So you can just sort of trigger all of the pads from an external keyboard or from your S2400, or you can just use your mouse on the screen. So we've got things like level. This will control level, pitch, and classic envelopes. You can configure both classic and hi-fi envelopes using this interface. The filters are implemented, and you can see as we move these controls, you get sort of a momentary readout on the OLED. I've tried to get the envelope timings and the filter sounding as close as I could to the S2400, but it's not going to sound exactly the same, of course. But it should give you a good starting point and a good sort of point of reference as to roughly what it's going to sound like when you get it into your machine. So on with that, let's load some samples in. Now, there's multiple different ways that you can load samples into this setup. The first way is if you've just got a Finder window or an Explorer window on your desktop, you can just literally drag a sample onto a pad, and you'll see the pad highlight. You can't see me dropping the icon over, but you can see that the interface is reacting. And then when I let go of that sample, it'll load to a pad. And just as the hardware does, it will assign a color to that pad. And we'll get on to different things that you can do with the pads and properties in a moment. But so you can drag a sample into the web browser window. But we've also integrated this file browser. Now, this I can't guarantee how this works across different browsers, and this is why I said it can be a bit messy with different browsers, because web browsers don't want to give you access to your local file system. So I should say as well, I've created a new category on the forum today for our web applications. So when I give you the link to go and play around and test this out, I would really appreciate feedback and bug reports. That will help us to get it sorted. So if we click File Browser, it will then ask me, it will ask you to navigate to a folder, and you can just give it the root folder, and then it will have access to anything under that folder that you select. So I've just selected a bunch of samples to use for this demo. And then when we select, so you can't see, again, you can't see my Finder window, but as soon as I clicked on select folder, it opened up a Finder window on my Mac. That's going to be your Explorer window on a PC. So I'm currently looking at my folder list, and I've selected a folder, and now I press select. It will then, Chrome will give you a pop-up again. Can we have permission to do what this user wants to do? And so from now, you can see that it's presented all of those files into my browser, into the web application. We've got an auto preview feature here. So if that is turned on, it will samples. I'm going to pause a moment to make sure that you can. I'm just going to play around in these files. I'm waiting for someone to tell me that you can hear the samples playing clearly. While I'm doing that, what you'll see here in this column is the information of the file that you're looking at. So it's giving you some basic metadata so that we can see this particular sample is a 24-bit sample stereo, the duration of it, the sample rate. So, of course, natively, the S2400 would have to be doing something with that sample. So at this point, what we can do is I'm going to load up. I'll just, for the first example, I'm just going to load some samples, some drum samples in. Now, again, these are all 24-bit samples at the moment at 44.1 kilohertz. And it's very easy to get them in. You just drag them onto the pad to wherever you want them. So we'll get a kick there, drag a rim shot onto pad 2. Let's get a shaker on pad 3. Let's give ourselves some hats, some claps, and some other crap. Now, as you can click bank here, and that will then move on to the next bank, and you can continue dragging your samples on. I'm going to just loop that back round. I'm just going to work with one bank for now. So what we've done there is we've dragged a load of samples into our interface, and in the background, what that's done is it's launched a thing called FFmpeg, which gets some metadata from that file, reads the type of input file that you've just given it. That currently can be a WAV, an AIFF, or an MP3. And locally on your computer, it's run a conversion process. It converts it to 48 kilohertz, 16-bit WAV, stereo or mono, whatever the source was, and then assigns it to that pad. So at this point in the memory on your machine, the samples that are loaded into this interface have been pre-converted for you. So we've got some samples, and you can hear them okay. And I can also trigger those now. The way that works is I've got my keyboard connected up. I thought I connected the S2400. Yeah, let me change that to my S2400 because it's just easier because it's right in front of me. So if I come out of there and hit the pad to my S2400, that is controlling the app. So the samples are converted. They're loaded into the interface. And at this point, and this sort of directly addresses one of the feature requests that I see pop up quite a lot on the forum, is people ask, well, it's not the restriction with the memory. We can't do that. But they say, oh, it'd be nice if we could have sort of a default SP1200 type mode. So that means like classic envelopes, change the bit depth of the samples, and have the pitch algorithm set to, you know, classic 16 and lo-fi. And so you can do that in this interface by clicking the global button, right? When you click the global button, you'll get a modal pop up here, and you can select a bunch of stuff like which audio engine you want to use, classic or hi-fi. You can change the bit depth down from 1 bit to 16 bits, change overall gain, transpose, and we've got pitch resolution, which, you know, slices up the difference in pitches as you move up and down the fader. Excuse me. And our envelope style, if you want them to be classic or hi-fi envelopes. So what this does is when you click apply to all pads, it will take all of those settings and it will apply them to every track, or all 32 tracks for you. And of course, when you save the kit then and load it up on the S2400, it'll have all those settings baked in for you. So there are multiple different ways that you can do other track properties, and I haven't fully built this out yet, but I think the ones that are the most important, you know, to get your samples into a kit and onto the machine are implemented. For each pad, you can see as I hover over every pad, there's a little edit button, and if you click the edit button, that then brings up a menu that you probably are familiar with from the S2400. Now, where we've got assign sound here, that's actually another avenue for you to go in. When you press that, again, you can't see on my screen, but it's just popped up a finder window to navigate to samples. So that's also another way there that you can press enter and load a sample. And you can then change, you know, your mono, stereo for the samples, what audio engine you want to use for that pad. So you've got global control over some of the settings for the pad. But then when you actually go into the pad menu itself, you've got control over a few different things like the choke group, trigger groups, volume envelope, whether you want it to be classic or hi-fi, stop on mute, no, and you can change the color just the same as you can on the S2400. So that one's currently red, and I'll change it to green, and that will all save in the kit. If you are a little bit partially sighted, like I'm veering towards, we've got a little magnifying glass icon up here in the OLED, and what that does is it just zooms in for you, and it just makes it easier to see all of those settings. As a shortcut, you can actually click on a different pad now. You cycle through the banks and just click on different pads, and you can see the top of this OLED menu that you're now focusing on a different track, so you can go in and change the settings quickly. I've tried to make it as sort of approaching doing the same thing from multiple different angles as easy as possible. So that is getting your properties and everything set up how you like them. I'm going to reset the interface real quick, and then I'm going to demo. I'm going to have to turn my output up. So you know what? I'm just going to put some headphones on real quick, because otherwise I don't want it to bleed through. I don't want it to bleed through too much. I hope I'm not going too fast, or maybe I'm even going a bit too slow. But you know, you can watch this back again afterwards, and you'll be able to get a better idea. As I said, I will flash out this little help menu button. It's just basic in there at the moment, but it will give you a starting point. And as I said, I'm going to give the link to this at the end of the stream. So what was I going to do? Okay, first off, what I'm going to do is just sort of show you through the basic. Well, let me get something that's. Let me get something like this. So I'm just going to drag this on and let that is converted already. Okay, so just a basic sample of a little pad. So as I'm saying, this level is set into the kit. You've also got. Now the resonance on this is a bit nastier than. A little bit nastier than the S2400, and I do need to fine tune that. Well, there's a lot of things I've got to fine tune, but as I said, I think it's pretty much ready for you guys to start using and getting to grips with. So we've got level, we've got pitch, and you can sort of set those relative to how you want. That will also listen to whatever you have set up here in the pitch resolution. And when we initially click envelope, how have I got this set right now? Let me just see if that envelope is set. Yeah, the volume envelope is set to classic. So what happens now is when I click envelope, we've got 31 or 32 different steps of release time, and that's sort of reminiscent of the SP1200, where it had a release time. I think it was a decay time of up to 2.5 seconds or thereabouts. This probably still needs a bit of tweaking, but if we click it, click onto envelope and just press the pad, we get barely anything. Now as I'm clicking it, obviously it's a lot. And then if we push it all the way up, we get essentially infinite decay. So essentially that envelope is off. Now, however, and this is where it gets pretty annoying. It can often be a bit cumbersome. Obviously, editing hi-fi envelopes on the machine. So if you want to really get surgical with a sound, and you are on hi-fi envelopes for that track, and then you click envelope, then we get into this much more sort of much more involved editor that is allowing you to shape that sample a lot more. Now here we can press the space bar, and we'll and it will preview. Oh, it's previewing the envelope that isn't actually doing anything. So if we turn, for instance, the attack up, you'll hear that ramp up and cut out. If we gently bring up that release a bit, then we'll play it again just by hitting the space bar. Okay, so once you set all of these parameters and you apply and close, that will then is baked onto that pad. So when you create a kit and export the kit and bring it into your S2400, the envelope, when you hit the pad, the envelope should engage and sound somewhat like that. Again, like I said, it's very difficult for me to get those absolutely bang on. I've done my best looking at how the S2400 is dealing with everything and at the moment, and that's based. These envelopes are based on a percentage of the overall length of the sample. What you can also do is, if we go into envelope again, what I'm going to do is just going to make that make this envelope just excuse me, just play the whole sample. I'll just apply that to make sure. All right, now I'm just going to bring the cutoff down for that for a moment, and let's go back into the envelope. And now we've got envelope 2, which is our modulation envelope. So if I sort of bring up a gradual amp attack on that and hit play, you won't hear much at all. But what we can also do is send that second envelope to the filter. I've got to do some work on getting it working in the negative direction, and that was something I was banging my head against the wall with yesterday, but I gave up in the end. So you can adjust, put those same envelopes. Nice little bit of movement to the sound, and you can also send that to the pitch and varying depths. So. And then when you come out, that should be set onto the pad itself. The next sexy thing that I want to show you is, and again, just shout at me in the chat if I'm going too fast. I haven't read any of the comments at the moment, but I'm trying to glance at them, but a lot of them have sort of scrolled up. Let me reset the interface again so I know where I'm at. Buddy, I'm streaming at the moment. You got to go away. My dog is on me. No, Ben, off you go. He wants to go out. I'm sorry. I've got to let him out the door. Come on, quick, quick. Come on. Sorry. Okay, let me get my headphones back on again. So let me load up a sample that is like a drum beat or something. That one should work. So I'm just going to drag that onto the pad. Now, we've got two audio editors, as we do on the S2400. We've got basic sort of loop and sort of trim. So you'll see the playhead scroll across there. Something I've got to work on at the moment is just these markers. So the red markers that you see there are the start and end points of the sample. So then when you hit to preview it, and you can come in and change, just change where the start and end of the sample is. But you've also got loop. So if we turn the loop on, then we get a separate set of markers which we can then change. So we can move these and adjust them and then play. And you can get pretty surgical with them. Now, what I need to say here also is, you can zoom in as well. I do need to put start and end markers, in and out markers for the zoom. when you select these markers, it will automatically go to the nearest zero crossing point. It sort of scans within about 10 milliseconds or something like that to sort of find its nearest zero crossing. Now, something that I haven't been able to get over with doing this in the web browser is it uses a technology called web audio, which is, you know, a set of libraries that are in Chrome and other browsers, like, you know, a web standard. And using its internal features, I haven't been able to get it to stop clicking, and it's kind of a known thing. So while this application is setting markers and loop points, etc., to zero point crossings, you'll probably still hear clicks in your web browser. You just have to sort of suck it and see, and let me know how you get on with that. But that's just this is our basic theme to sort of cut out the part that you want in a sample and set the loop point. So I've showed you that, but perhaps a bit more exciting is also if you click multi-mode first, as you would on the real machine, and then click loop slice, you can then do multiple slices of the audio file. So let's click on equal slicing, and as the same as the S2400 does, that divides the entire length of the sample by 8 and creates slices for you. Now you can play, let me just reset the slices for a moment. You can play the whole file. And if we click on equal slicing, it will slice that into equal slices. Now, if we have the auto preview button clicked and we can click and it will play just that slice. And you can zoom in to a slice, and if you press S, that's zooming to the start marker of that slice. So I'm going to press S, and then I'm going to zoom, and it's going to always keep this first slice marker into focus. And then if I click the E, it will zoom to the end slice of that. The end marker of that slice, excuse me. So you can go in there and get surgical. And again, if I click that focused on the end marker and zoom right in, and then try and move this marker, you'll probably see that it wants to snap to a zero crossing point. Maybe I'm zoomed in too far there, or it can't find any content. Or I might have messed it up. But when you zoom in there and then move a marker around, okay, so it works at 8 times. Let me just zoom in there and see if it's not letting me move it once I'm zoomed in. Okay, so I found a bug. It's not letting me zoom in, and it was before. But you would move this marker around, and you'll see it snap to the 0 points, 0 crossings. Sorry. So that's that. The machine kind of does that by default anyway, but what that does allow you to do is, you know, because hits and stuff, when you do equal slices, might not always necessarily fall where you want them to. So you can get in this way, you can go in. So for instance, there, look, where it's done equal slicing, there's a bit of silence at the start of the file. So you can sort of drag that marker in and then drag the start of the next slice back a bit and work out stuff like that. The other thing that I've been trying to work on, and it's a bit hit and miss, I need to introduce a couple of different algorithms, because slicing beat content and slicing sort of musical content is kind of a different kettle of fish. And I tried to sort of get the best of both worlds, and then I kind of gave up on that and just figured, I think most of you are going to be slicing beats up. So I've tried, and it's not great, but it kind of gets there, is transient slicing. Transient slicing takes into consideration the whole length of the sample file and sort of tries to sort of calculate where those transients are occurring. Remember, of course, that there can only be 8 slices, so it kind of has to be a bit choosier than it would be if you were using something like Ableton. and stuff. I broke the threshold this morning, so it's not currently doing anything. But it was earlier. What it would do is sort of move them, and sort of it would have moved slice 7 and 8 and chosen these 2 hits. But I did something and I broke it, and then I did not want to push to the web server again and then blow the whole project up like an hour before I was going to do this stream. But I think. With what you can do in there now, let me load a different sample up that's like piano or some chords. Okay, so if I bring that in, and we go and look at that. So these are some chords. It might do a better job with this. Yeah, it does a slightly better job there. Although it's being a little bit selective and a little bit scared of the actual start of those transients, so you're getting a bit of dead air there. Like I said, this is a beta and I'm working on it. I'm writing some mental bug reports as I'm doing this demo, but having some transient detection there might be a little bit of help, and it's better than not having it at all, right? So you can go in there, you can reset your slices if you get into a mess with it all, or just change back to equal. And then what happens is when you click apply and close, it keeps all of those slice points. They're actually just sample references, and it keeps those in a store, which it's later on going to write into the kit file for you. So what else is there to go over? I mean, I think that's most of it for now. There are some things that I haven't built out yet, and that is multi-level. So you can see at the moment, all I've got there is multi-slice. And there's multi-level and multi-pitch to do, and multi-envelopes. But I just didn't feel those to be absolutely necessary, really, as a sort of a starting point for you guys to start being able to make some kits. There are some other sort of roadmap features that I want to build into this. Some of those to do with like MIDI controls, for being able to remotely control the machine and to be able to create MIDI maps on there. But I'm sure that you guys are going to have plenty of ideas for things that could be built into this as we go along. So yeah, the last sort of step there, if I just go into this file browser again, I'm just going to bang a bunch of samples onto the pad. So I'm going to drag that one in any order. Close this out. And so then once you've got everything exactly how you want it, you're going to click on download kit. And right now, StreamYard, this new software that I'm using, isn't actually showing you my browser prompts and stuff. But as I've just clicked download kit now, the browser pops up, enter a name for your kit. So you give it a name, whatever you want to call it, and click OK. And then what that does is your browser immediately downloads it, which is something that I also can't show you because it's only showing you the content of the window. But you just got to trust me and believe me that it's that it's downloaded that kit in a zip file, which you do need to uncompress when you put it on the S2400. And inside that zip file is a folder with the WAV samples that have been pre-converted for you, and your .kit or kit file. I think I could spend a couple of moments trying to answer some questions, but I think that covers everything, most of the things that you might want to know. Just on the outset of this, as I said, I'm sure we will develop more stuff for it. On the bottom of the screen now, you can probably see the web app URL, and I'll go and post the links to that and everything in the forum. As I said, I created a new category on the Isla Instruments forum. That is forum.islainstruments.com. Really appreciate it if you just give me your musings, what it could do better, if you find any bugs. If any of you are sort of web developers, there's an there's a large amount of console output when you are doing stuff on the app. Loads and loads of feedback comes back through the console, which is really useful for debugging. I think that about covers it, doesn't it, for now? Let me have a quick look at the chat section, and then I'm going to go and make myself some lunch. Okay, so what's this? Let me test this thing out. So let me see. Hey, that works. So Mac Beats by Gold Claggett. I just tuned in, so I need to know if the DSP do I need to get the DSP for this or no? No, you don't. This works just with a standard stock S2400. So presumably you're going to wind back the stream and take a look. But yeah, this is just essentially allowing you to pre-build kits and it generates them for you, and you download them, put them on your SD card, and all those samples have been prepared for you with all the basic settings that you might want to set. Is there a new batch of DSP chips planned? Yes, we're just doing some very minor revisions just to the fan connector for the next batch of DSP cards. Hoping that these shouldn't take as long to make. So I think as soon as I have the lead times for the module, we'll open them up for pre-order again. But they should be ready to ship. I'm hoping within the next 2 months. They shouldn't be too long. However, the China tariffs are absolutely spanking me at the moment, and we've had to find some sort of alternative methods, and it might be that we get our own pick and place machine again. So we'll see how it goes with that. Thankfully, we should have stuff in place to get the DSP cards done within the next couple of months. So yeah, Matt Jones likes a bit of air at the start. I bet he does. Yeah, I mean, my stomach's rumbling. So thanks a lot to Vlad for pointing the willies up me, for not knowing whether you could hear everything or not. So I guess I will leave it at that. Any updates on Caladan? Right, well, so now I've got this app out the way. Yes, Caladan. We've all got our machines. This is what should be the final. The only thing there is if I get it in the right light, you can see the window for all the OLED screens. It's a little bit too translucent, but we've finally got them to do a much better job on it, and it's like actually a shiny window now. This one's got some cards in it. All of the stock cards have been produced. They're actually en route now. They're going somewhere else so that I could avoid getting them directly to the USA. That was a real big headache. But I think we've got the DSP firmware now to a good enough place where it's stable and we're reasonably happy with it. So feature updates and feature creep for the S2400, especially now this app has been done. It's something I wanted to do for a long time. It's going to be full focus on Caladan now. I think probably next week, Mickey and I will be sitting down, or the three of us will all be sitting down and hashing out all of the UI elements and the way that we're communicating with cards. Currently, everything that we've done and demos that I've done with the cards have sort of been, the Caladan has been just routing MIDI directly from the USB directly to the card. So now we've got to build that into the actual control surface of the Caladan. But yeah, I'm chomping at the bit to get on this thing. It's already been too long. There's just been a lot of roadblocks in the way, and they're out of the way now, hopefully. So I promise I'm not going to be shutting up about this thing soon. So, and the next live stream will be me showing you the things that this can do. Again, with all the stuff that's happened on the DSP, if you did know this or didn't, but basically everything the S2400 DSP does is the backbone of the digital side of Caladan. So that means the VST3 plugins, LV2 plugins, and all of that stuff is also directly built into the Caladan. So yeah, I'll give you lots more news on that. Compatibility with Koala. Someone said something about Koala on a comment the other day, and I've never heard about it. I'm guessing it's a software sampler. That is actually something I needed to say. So the file import that goes into this editor is currently working with WAV, AIFF or AIF, and MP3. I was having trouble with .snd, which is an Akai and other things sort of format. And what that might end up being is a separate application. Doing this bulk conversion thing became a problem when I learned that browsers don't really like giving the web browser access to a file system for obvious reasons. You know, websites can have malware and all sorts of stuff. So while we can have this get read access to your file system, as you saw when I did like the file browser on here, and get access to my folders, when we come in to download the kit, it sends it to the browser as a download. It's not, you can't write files directly to the file system from the browser for security reasons, which is what sort of cock-blocked me a little bit with trying to do all of these other file format conversions, because you can't just use this thing called FFmpeg to do all of those other fancy formats. Now, it's not to say that it can't be done, but this application that I've done here is like 100% running locally on your computer in your browser. Your computer is doing the file conversion and all of that. It's just sort of bundled into a what's called WebAssembly, into a little blob that's running as an application within your browser. To do the other thing with all the different conversions of different file formats would have to have what's called a backend, and that means as you upload files into your browser or drag files into your browser, they're getting beamed to our backend server that's running processes on them, and then it fires them back to you. And the problem with that is, especially with audio files and big chunks, as I've already recently found out with the application that I did for you for the sound fonts, is it costs a lot of money. The bandwidth, and that's running on Amazon's web service thing, and it's already costing a lot of money. And so that was kind of a prerequisite with this, is to get everything working in your browser. So it's just using, you know, your electricity and not mine. I am gonna go. We need a S2400 app. Now, funny enough, someone already asked me about that. I've got zero interest in making an app or a VST of the S2400. I want you to buy an S2400. So why would I go and create a VST or an app that does what we've got on the desktop? We're not really in the business of making software apps. This is like a companion app for the S2400, but it's not an S2400. The audio that you hear obviously coming out of it is just for preview purposes. And beyond that, I mean, essentially, you can load a bunch of samples into this and connect a MIDI sequencer to your web browser using the web MIDI, and you've got sort of a rudimentary sample playback engine, but it's kind of pointless, really. But yeah, well, this again, Carrie, a VST editor. Well, I just don't see the point in it, because I'll tell you why. There's a few different things. Okay, if it's a VST, if it's an editor run as a plugin, I have to maintain a code base, which I can't do, for different types of, you know, VST, LV2, or, you know, AEU for Apple. And then I have to start rolling out software updates that I have to package them up to things that you come and download. And remember, this is a free tool. And anything that you could do to edit the S2400 that you'd be doing in a VST plugin, you can do it right there in the web browser and connect it to your machine. So definitely there is not going to be any plugins that are going to do this, I'm afraid. So that should put an end to that question. Sorry, mate. I don't know the price on the FX card yet. But that's why I've not opened it up for pre-order. But as soon as everything is set in stone and I know that it's only going to be like a month or two out, then I'll open it up for pre-order again. And sort of like the first week of that pre-order velocity will sort of tell me exactly how many I need to build and stuff. So, all right, guys, look, thank you very much for coming on and watching. As I said, please come to the forum and let me know how you find how you're finding it and everything. And the link to get to this application, I did already put it on the bottom of the stream. I'll put it there real quickly now before I hang up, and I'll go and update the forum posts. Thanks for watching. See you then.